So you're thinking of buying a home in Southwest Florida, but curious what the hurricane season brings? Well, then this video is for you. Today we're going to touch on some of the realities of owning a home here in Southwest Florida during hurricane season, how to prepare, how to prep, and what it's really like. So make sure to stay tuned to this video and we'll touch on all these key aspects. First, I want to touch on some of the realities of storm surge. Obviously here in Southwest Florida, we're right along the Gulf Coast of Florida. So you're going to have the Gulf of Mexico and the Caloosahatchee River. And up in Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, you're going to have the Mayaca River and Charlotte Harbor, which are all major waterways connected to the Gulf of Mexico. Living right on those waterways then obviously brings you some kind of impact and potential for some storm surge. So I wanted to touch on that and go over what it's really like living in those areas and some things that you can do to prevent potential storm surge flooding. So in our area, we have only really had 2 or 3 major hurricanes that have really brought too much storm surge. Hurricane Ian was the big one, and then the last 2 hurricanes, Milton and Hurricane Helene, did a little bit of damage, but obviously not as bad as Hurricane Ian, which was a direct hit to our area. However, I definitely wanted to make this video because we have had lots and lots of people having a little concern recently regarding the hurricanes and what exactly life is really like. So in our area, we have different flood zone codes and we have different evacuation areas. So if you're in an evacuation zone A or B, you're going to definitely want to make some kind of preparations for storm surge. I've seen people recently using caulk, flex tape, sandbags, things of that matter. You're basically going to want to block your garage door, that crack at the bottom to where water can get in. Any other doors in your house, so your back door, your side door, the side garage door, and your front door, you can use some kind of waterproofing tape, you can use some kind of caulk, you can use some kind of flex seal, put sandbags on it, put plastic wrap, anything that's going to protect the cracks of your doors from water being able to surge in through those cracks. Also, you're going to want to make sure that you protect your windows. Do basically the same thing, either caulk, some kind of tape, plastic wrap, anything of the sort to mitigate the water damage. Obviously, once water, especially saltwater surge, gets in your house, you are going to have lots of problems. Anything that the water touches, chances are you're going to have to throw away. That includes furniture. If it touches your baseboards, you're going to have to get rid of those, get new baseboards. If it gets up to the drywall, you're going to have to cut out the drywall and replace the drywall as well. So avoiding the storm surge is definitely going to be in your best interest. Like I said, there are many ways to mitigate it, but ultimately the reality of owning a home in one of these high evacuation and flood surge areas, more or less a risk that you're going to have to take. Most of the times these areas are very, very close to the water, if not waterfront, prime neighborhoods, prime locations. So you're going to be having a higher quality of life, and ultimately it's kind of just, the cost of living in paradise. But like I said, there are many things that you can do to mitigate the damage. Obviously, you're going to want to carry flood insurance. So if anything does happen, pay your deductible, get everything taken care of, and you're going to be good to go. You can also, things like your cars and personal belongings, you're going to want to set all of your personal belongings up high out of any area where the storm surge water could potentially go. Maybe park your car in a parking garage, find a friend's house who's outside of the potential surge areas, things like that to be able to protect your car and your personal belongings. Obviously, the house has insurance on it. Hopefully your car does as well, but it's never fun dealing with these kind of things. It can take time, it can take money, and it can take a lot of effort to get everything back to the way that you had left it before the storm surge. So doing anything possible to mitigate is definitely necessary. Now, the next thing I want to touch on is wind damage. Wind damage is obviously a major impact of hurricanes. However, especially here in Southwest Florida, it's not the thing that we really necessarily worry about. Your main problems there are going to be if you have roofs that are old, pool cages, if you don't have any sort of storm protection on your windows, and potentially if you have some kind of wood frame house or something that's not concrete block. However, in our area, the majority, I want to say 90, 95, 99% of houses here are built concrete blocks, so they're made to withstand winds of high 100-mile-an-hour, some 200-mile-an-hour wind gusts. New roofs are definitely going to be something that you're going to want to keep an eye out for. When purchasing down here, you would hate to have your roof blow off or lose part of your roof or anything like that. Pool cages, you're going to want to make sure that you have an updated pool cage, carry an insurance policy on it, because obviously suck to lose your pool cage, but that's usually one of the first things that go in some kind of hurricane event. It's really really easy for the wind to blow through and rip the pool cage off. Typically, you're going to lose some screens. A lot of times the main beams can hold steady and be very secure. However, you're definitely going to want to keep that in mind. Also, a lot of our houses down here do have impact windows, impact doors, storm shutters. Those can be various different types. There's Kevlar ones, which you kind of click onto the windows. There's the traditional ones that you have bolts directly in the house. Put them up, screw them in. You also have impact windows, impact doors, which I mentioned before, and then you have pull down shutters and accordion shutters. Typically, all of our houses down here that were built in recent memory all have storm protection already installed, just because hurricanes are a pretty major factor here. So they wanted to make sure that all these houses are going to withstand these high winds. Ultimately, the storm shutters and things like that are mainly going to be just more protection from more major damages. You're really worried about things flying, busting windows, creating draft into the house, which could potentially rip off your roof or cause more major damage than just losing the window. So anything you can do to board up your house is going to be recommended. Also, if your house does not have storm shutters, you can go to a hardware store around the time of the hurricane or a lumber store, get big pieces of wood, get big concrete block bolts, drill them in over the windows to have the same effect as you would with storm shutters. And as I mentioned before, as the building codes continue to get better here, most of the times new construction houses down here, they're definitely going to have shutters, but a lot of the builders are just opting to go ahead and go for impact windows and impact doors to provide the buyers a little more peace of mind. It's also going to save you on insurance costs and things like that, so that's definitely something to consider as well. Now I want to touch on preparing for the storm and what that's really like here in Southwest Florida. So obviously, as I mentioned before, with storm shutters, you're going to want to make sure that a couple days before the storm, once you get a real good idea of where it's going, you're going to want to put those up. Recently, the two hurricanes that we had, Hurricane Helene went up into the Big Bend area. That was a pretty steady track the whole entire time of the storm, so we didn't really board up for that one. Most people didn't board up. They didn't have to worry about doing storm shutters for that one. Tropical storm force winds, your house is typically going to be fine. Hurricane Milton, on the other hand, was going just north of us. It was looking like it was going to land anywhere between Tampa and Sarasota, so everyone here pretty much went ahead and boarded up. We have had storms in the past that showed they were going to go to a different area, took a turn at the last minute, and then next thing you know, you got a direct hit. So anything that looks like it could potentially be landing in the area, you're going to want to make sure that you do those storm shutters and make all sort of your preparations. So if you have the shutters, put them up. If you have impact windows and doors, you don't necessarily need to worry about it. The way that they're designed, they're not going to shatter. So even if something flies into the window and cracks it, you're going to have to replace that window, but you're not going to have that draft through the house, which could cause more damage, rip off your roof, etc. So whatever kind of storm protection that you have, you're going to want to make sure that you put it up. You're going to want to make sure if you don't have anything, you're going to want to go to those hardware stores, purchase the wood, purchase anything that you may need to get ready. You are also going to want to, like I mentioned previously in the flood zone steps, if you are in a flood zone, you're going to want to start to make preparations for your belongings, either putting them in some kind of waterproof bags, putting them in, maybe putting electronics in grocery sacks, putting them in garbage bags, tying them up, setting them up on counters, books, again, electronics. Furniture is harder to save, but you can try to set it on countertops, up on a high table, those kind of things like that to get that out of the storm surge. Obviously, if there is a huge storm surge projection incoming and you are in one of those A or B flood zones, we would recommend that you do evacuate, find some other place, even if it's as simple as, a friend that lives up in a different evacuation zone, whether that's, zone C or zone D, just to be able to get out of the surge. Again, we're not really super worried about the wind in our area, as most of our houses are concrete block and have lots and lots of storm upgrades. So the structure of your house, for the most part, is going to be fine from the wind. Really, you're worried about the surge and being able to get out of there. If the surge does come in, that can cause electrical problems, it can damage things, stuff like that. So you're going to want to not be in your house at that time. It's also very scary because if the water's coming in, you don't know when it's going to stop, you don't know when the storm's going to be over, so you're kind of just waiting to see when it starts to recede and when it goes back. So obviously we recommend, if you're in one of those flood zones, to just leave, better peace of mind, come back when the storm's over and assess the damages. The other things you're going to want to do are you're going to want to get flashlights, batteries, portable chargers, things like that you can sustain without electricity. So flashlights that run off of batteries, solar powered stuff, power banks to recharge your phone if your power goes out, get some food, get some water, get some gas, and get some supplies. We really like to recommend canned foods are a big one. You want to have some propane and probably a grill to be able to cook some food. Even if it's propane and a single little burner or something like that, you're going to want to have some way that you can heat up water, that you can, grill some meat, that you can cook your food so you're not having to just eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That is another thing though that we will recommend, is having bread, peanut butter, jelly, things like that to just make sandwiches, things that you don't necessarily have to heat up. However, it is always really, really nice to have a hot meal, especially after the storm. So anything that you can do to make that happen is definitely going to be recommended. Like I said, you can get a grill, you can get a little burner that's powered with one of those little propane cans, anything like that you can boil some water, make some noodles, put your canned food in there, make a soup, grill up some hot dogs, hamburgers, anything like that. Also too, we highly recommend having some kind of generator, whether you get a plug-in that goes into your whole house, whether you order one of those whole house auto generators that automatically snaps over when the power goes out, or even just one of those little portable generators. Having the ability to plug in your fridge, having the ability to plug in if you have a deep freezer, and little fans, lights, things like that goes a long way during the storms. If you do have a generator, which we do really recommend having one, you're also going to want to make sure that you stock up on gas for a couple days. A lot of times too, during these preparations, you're going to see long lines at gas stations, long lines at stores, a lot of stores running out of supplies and stuff like that. So anything that you can do well in advance of storm season. Typically most of the items that you're going to want to prepare anyways are going to be non-perishable items and things that are going to stay good for a long time. So having some kind of hurricane kit with all of your portable chargers, flashlights, batteries, things like that ready to go. And then at the beginning of hurricane season, maybe stock up on some bread, maybe stock up on some rice, noodles, things like that that are going to be more non-perishable items to be able to get you through the storm with no trouble. Also, any outdoor areas at your house, you're going to want to move all the furniture under some kind of cover or bring it inside just to make sure you don't have flying debris, which can definitely cause impacts regardless whether you board up or not. So now we're going to talk about what to expect after the storm. You're going to want to really be prepared to be self-sufficient for at least a couple days. It's very strange to say that in modern times. We're so used to getting in the car, going to the store, everything's open, everything's available to you, nobody's in a panic, things like that. However, when hurricanes do hit, a lot of that can change. As I mentioned before, leading up to the storm, you're going to have places that are out of gas, places that are out of food, places that don't have the supplies that you need. So you're going to want to make sure that you're prepared. And then after the storm, these things continue. So you're going to have gas stations that are out of gas, stores that don't have food, stores that potentially aren't open, stores that can't be open due to not having power, not having internet, not having electricity, all that kind of stuff. And you're going to have gas stations that are taking a while to refill. And even when those places do get supplies back, there's going to be a rush on those supplies. So you're going to want to prepare for at least a couple days of being self-sufficient, have a bunch of water, have a bunch of food, have a bunch of supplies, have a generator, have the gas for it, and be ready to go so you're not going to have any issues. During Hurricane Ian, that was a pretty big storm in our area. We did have, I believe it was the National Guard or FEMA come through. They brought us some water, ice, MREs, things like that. However, they weren't great. Obviously, the water was nice to have and the ice was nice to be able to keep things cool. But anything that you can do to continue your self-sufficiency and be prepared so that you don't have to get those things is going to definitely be a very, very, very big plus for you. You're also going to have potentially roads closed. You're also going to have communication blocks, cell towers go down. No one's going to have internet if there's no power, all those kind of things. So just make sure that you're prepared. Have a generator at your house. Have a plan when the power goes out, when the storm's over. How do you get the generator going? What are you going to plug in? Whether you plug in your whole house through one of those plugs, whether you run extension cords and only run a couple things, what you're going to eat for food, how long you have a water supply, things like that. During Hurricane Ian, I believe most areas in the Cape were out of power for around 10 to 20 days. So it was about a week and a half to 2.5 weeks that a lot of people had to be self-sufficient. Once you start to get power and communication and those kind of things back, stores are going to start opening back up. Some restaurants are going to start opening back up. Gas stations are going to have gas. However, again, like I said, those things are going to come with a lot of people there, long lines. So anything that you can do to just be prepared, be able to hunker down and shut the world out for a couple days is definitely going to be recommended. So now I want to touch on some of the insurance and financial realities of being impacted by hurricanes. Due to the fact that we are a pretty high hurricane area and hurricanes hit all over Florida, insurance costs have been a little bit on the rise, and especially hurricane prone areas are going to have higher insurance premiums than those who are not. Also, as mentioned before, with flood insurance in areas that potentially have storm surge, that's something that you're definitely going to want to carry even if you don't have a mortgage and it's not mandated. It always sucks to lose your things, so you want to make sure that you're protected and you don't have to start over if you don't have flood insurance. Homeowners insurance as well for any wind damages, any claims, anything like that. You're going to want to also document everything that you have, take pictures of your house, and have a general inventory list of all the things that you have, a rough estimate cost of the item, and also a replacement cost. A lot of times insurance companies will try and pay you only for the depreciated value of something. So let's say that you have a computer that you bought for $500, 3 years later, now it's only worth $250. They're going to try and give you that $250. So you have to know what exactly that you paid for things and what a replacement cost would be, so that you can go back to the insurance company and say, hey, I know this depreciated, but my replacement cost is going to be $500 for a new computer. So I'm going to need $500 to be able to replace this. So anything that you can do to stay organized, it's going to help you from a long claims process, hiring adjusters, hiring attorneys, etc. And again, the ultimate reality is that being in a hurricane prone area, it is going to come with a little bit higher insurance premiums and a little bit more financial responsibilities there. As I mentioned before too, with impact windows, impact doors, those are going to give you insurance discounts, so they can definitely help with lowering your insurance costs. Also, if your house is built up higher and you have an elevation certificate, if you have a new roof on your house, if you have a new pool cage on your house, dependent upon even without the windows and doors being impact, having some kind of storm protection on the house, you get different discounts for that as well. So there are definitely things that you can do to lower that insurance burden and reduce your variable costs in having insurance, but you're definitely going to want to make sure that you know your policy, know what's covered, and are organized so that way, if and when you do have a claim, that you are ready to solve it. Finally, we're going to want to touch on the emotional impact of living somewhere where hurricanes happen. It's a lot of stress and it's a lot of preparing. Obviously, you know, even if the hurricane doesn't hit you directly, the days leading up to it, you're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly thinking about all the things that you need to do to prepare. You're doing those preparations. You have a lot of people around you who are just generally in a more scared mindset, and they might be impacting you, stressing you out. They might think that, you know, it's going to be the worst hurricane they've ever seen and that we're all going to die. And so that can definitely, you know, take a toll on you as well. So the key there is stay calm, control what you can control, and what you can't control, that's what we pay for insurance for, and those kind of things. Ultimately, Southwest Florida is paradise 95% of the year. However, we do have those couple months during hurricane season where it can definitely get, you know, a little hectic there. And so being prepared, knowing what you're going to do, and having a plan is going to save you a lot of stress. Just knowing, okay, if there's a hurricane that's coming, this is what I'm going to do. I already have my supplies. I am ready to go. You're not going to be stressing last minute. Also, our community support here is great. So the community does really come together after these hurricanes to support each other, to help rebuild, to help clean up. There's a lot of people in the area who, for free or for minimal cost, will come help you clean up after the storm, will come help you put up storm shutters, will come help you prep your house, get you supplies, all those kind of things. And then again, after the storm, there's a lot of cleanup activities. There's, you know, neighbors having block parties with each other. There's people coming together and really rejoicing that we're all fine and that the hurricanes have passed, and, you know, we can enjoy our time together again. The community really always comes together and helps out its people in need. Floridians are really strong and really great at doing that. So it's a very great aspect of living here, especially in Southwest Florida. Now, that was it for today's video. I really thank you all for watching. Again, you're going to want to make sure that you're prepared for these storms and understand the realities of them. When you're living here in Southwest Florida, you're going to want to make sure you're prepared for any potential storm surge. Know your evacuation area, know your flood zone code, know what kind of wind protection your home has. If you need a new roof sometime during the year, it's getting old, you're worried about it, update that. Any kind of storm protection that you have on the windows, make sure you understand how it works, what your plan is there, any loose debris, any things like that. Make sure that you're just keeping up with it, so again, it doesn't become a super stressful situation at the end of the year. Also, be prepared beforehand and after. Just be prepared to be self-sustainable for a while. You're really going to have to rely on yourself. As I mentioned though, the community does really do a great job at coming together and helping out those in need, but ultimately taking care of yourself first is going to be the key to making sure you're taken care of, and then you can go help others if you so choose. So ultimately, hurricanes, it just comes with the territory of, again, living here in paradise in Southwest Florida. Not really the end of the world, not a super huge deal. We get them, you know, maybe once every 2 years, once a year, something like that. Not the end of the world. Most of the times it's not a direct hit and everything is fine. There's only really been 3 or 4 major hurricanes that I've gone through living here my whole entire life. Hurricane Charlie when I was a baby, Hurricane Ian, Milton was a little something, we got a little surge. Helene was basically nothing, tropical storm winds, some water came in, and the rest of them are so unmemorable. I really don't, you know, remember. Irma was maybe a little one, but nothing too bad. It just comes with the territory again, like I said. So just being informed, having a plan in place, and being prepared is going to be key to dealing with these storms here in Florida and Southwest Florida. Again, thank you all for watching. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share with anyone you know that's concerned with hurricanes here in Southwest Florida. If you are local and you're maybe thinking about moving to a different area after these, you know, recent hurricanes had come through, feel free to reach out to us. We would love to sit down with you and come up with a plan for potentially getting your house for sale. And if you're someone who wants to move to the area and do have, you know, potentially some concerns about different aspects of hurricanes, feel free to give us a call. We can go over different flood zones, different elevations, different upgrades that you can make to your house to make it more storm ready, and all these kind of things. So all of our contact information can be found in the description below. You can also reach out anytime, 239-895-9383 or admin@themilnerteamfl.com. My name is Braden Milner. I'm the team lead here at the Milner team at Florida Future Realty. And again, thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for next week's video. Again, reach out to us anytime with any of your questions, comments, concerns, or needs, 239-895-9383 or admin@themilnerteamfl.com, and I'll see you all next week for our next video.